Okay, welcome to week 3 of Watercolor Wednesdays. Hopefully this will get to you by the end of Wednesday. Sorry about that. So I want to show you a wet on wet technique that I'm going to use to lay in some color on the background of this painting. First I'm going to clear off a color palette. Actually, I'm just going to clean up some of this color that I don't want on the color palette. I want to refer to my color charts that I had mixed up before on my sample paintings. I'll show you those in a second. And I want to wet the background with some nice clean water. Okay, so that's pretty clear. That's not too bad. All right, so what did we do last week? Last week we talked about mixing. We did this on the first week. So we mixed some color for the background to try different things. I think I am going to try the Opera Rose and Manganese Blue to lay some color down. I'm going to throw in possibly some of this deep purple and maybe some cobalt and quin red. So I'm going to keep this. I'm going to actually take this out of my notebook so I can then look at it while I am choosing my colors for the background. Now I'm working on my sample piece before I do my finished piece, and I'm doing that so I can show you what to do. I'm going to leave the lines in, and I'm going to show you how to manage around the painting here, all these little nooks and crannies. So I am going to lighten it just a little bit with my gum eraser. I'm going to, if I can find it, I'm going to lift up some of those colors. There we go. Lift up some of those lines here, just loosen them. I'm going to get rid of the grids. Okay. I really don't need that showing through. And there we go. Wherever there's a grid, I'm going to erase around some of these plants to soften those lines so they don't show up in the painting. All right. There we go. I'm even going to soften the lines for lighten the lines for the, around the piece itself. I should probably tape this down because it is a wide expanse and I am going to be adding a lot of water. So I'm just going to tape it to itself. I'm going to go and tape the pad to itself. And I'll just give it a little tension and support it while it's drying so it doesn't completely warp. Use the blue tape. Comes off easy later. If I was painting on my regular pad, I probably wouldn't worry about this too much. I like using the borders to test paint colors. That once you frame this piece, you're not going to see them, so it's okay to do that. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to take this nice big Hake brush. It's you can get them. They're very soft and fluffy. It's always good to have one or two of these in your watercolor collection of brushes. I'm just going to take a bunch of water and get it really saturated and let that sit there for a minute. I want that brush nice and wet. And then I'm going to take a really big brush and I'm going to mix a pile of the colors that I want to use. I'm going to mix them separately. So I'm putting some color on my watercolor palette. Let's see if I can show you. Let me bring this over a little bit. I'm mixing up some Quin Rose, Quin Violet, sorry. I am mixing up, oh, it was Quin Red, sorry. Quin Red. mixing up a good portion of manganese blue and Opera Rose, which is here. And some cobalt blue and some dioxazine purple. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I am going to move this to a side so I can access this better. And I'm just going to wet down, get some nice water and just wet down the background of this. This is going to be a wet on wet technique. I'm going to be careful not to paint over the flowers or the leaves. I'm going to come up close. And the wetter your paper, the more flow your pigment will have. So it'll sort of spread out into various areas. So you can control that spread by controlling the water. Watercolor is very much about water control. So I'm going to hold this up to the light and see where the areas are that aren't covered. And I don't want it dripping. I don't want it picking it up and having it run. So I'm going to take a smaller brush now, and I'm going to get closer, and I'm going to go into the areas that have no water. I don't want to create hard edges. I am not trying to paint a very flat background, so it's okay if there's streaks or color changes or lines, or I have to go back and paint the background in around these flowers later. That's totally fine. I'm going to show you a way of doing that allows you to do that and has a nice texture to the background as well. But I just want to get close, okay? I'm going to take this and hold it up to the light. You're going to have to do the same. I can't see where it is with the camera on top of it, so I do have to kind of take it and look at it. Okay, and things look pretty wet. And then the other thing is you want to, if you're trying to spread color around, you don't want the area to dry out. So that looks pretty wet to me. I don't know if you can see, but maybe a little bit. You'll try it out on your own piece and you'll understand. Okay, so one of the techniques I use ends up looking a little like this, like I painted around the background of this leaf. Now, it isn't a flat color. There's a bunch of different colors, and it makes it really interesting. And I'm going to do something sort of in between this and painting fabric. So I'm going to have a lot of color changes. I'm not going to try to really define anything too specifically. I really want the focus to be on the color. I mean on the pansies and the flowers themselves. So I'm not going to worry about getting it right if you want to call it that. So I'm going to take a big, this is a wide, I think this is a 3/4 inch brush. And I'm just going to gently mix some of this color together. Just a little bit. I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm going to take this and see what color it looks like. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So this is a little manganese blue and a little Opera Rose. All right. And I'm just going to lay it down. And I'm going to get a little bluer down here, because I can see that that is a little in shadow. And I'm going to let that color go over here. And I'm going to add a little blue where I know there's some shadow. So here, here, and down here. Taking the corner of my brush and walking some color in there. You can see that it's puddling. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I will address that in a bit once I get some more color down. So I think I'd like it a little pinker through here. If you paint over something by mistake, this is an awesome time to take a clean paper towel and blot it. So I just take the corner. I can see I painted over a little bit of area here, so I just blot it. If the color is running too much and you want to stop it, dry your brush out and drag it where you don't want the paint to be. You can see that if there's no water letting that channel flow into that part of the piece, it's going to stop that color from bleeding. So this is really just kind of the fun part. You're just letting the color do what it wants to do. Move where it wants to go with a little guidance from you and your brush. You can see that where I'm putting color down where the paper is dry, it's leaving a more distinct line, which is great for right now. You can come up with this nice flat edge brush and put color in without worrying about it bleeding. It's nice that I didn't paint right up to the edge, so that's the benefit of doing that. Okay, I need some more Opera Rose, so I'm going to go in and get that. I think this tends to be a little pinker than I was thinking. So I'm going to make sure I get some of that here and in here. All right. I like the variation that I've got going on here. I think it nicely represents a lot of the colors that are in this fabric, and I know I can go back and wet this all down again at a later date and add more color. If I feel like something's not working or doesn't make sense visually, I can blot my brush and lift. So this looks like it needs to get a little lighter because I know that there's light over here. Okay, so I can lift that up. This looks like it's getting a little too dark, so I'm going to lift that up too. And I'm kind of following like the contours of the fabric. There's a little bit of a crease there that casts some shadow, and there's some shadow down here. Get that in. Great time to get some straight lines if you need to. Make sure those measure up, meet up visually behind, so that line is continuous through behind. Through your eye will follow that line continuously through here. It's not too high or low on the other side. Okay, a little lighter here. And you can see I am removing a little color, but I'm also controlling where the paint goes by doing that. I think this needs to get lightened up a little bit more. And I know I can go back and do that again. So that would be my first layer of a wet on wet background that I can do. You can do the same thing for the foreground, you know, when you're feeling confident about where everything needs to go. And so that's wet on wet.